If you're not running webinars for your info product offers or your coaching businesses, then you're literally missing out on a massive opportunity to collect huge amounts of additional extra revenue every single month. For context, I've made nearly $500,000 in the past few months by running webinars for my clients. And you can literally see the boost in sales by taking this one client of mine as an example. Right here, this big spike is where we ran a webinar for him at the end of the month. And in this 4-day period from launch, which is here, up until when we finished our follow-up processes, which is about here, it was 4 days, and we made the same amount of money in this 4-day period as we did for the entire rest of the month with our standard VSL book a call funnel. So today I'm going to be telling you exactly why you should be running webinars for your offers, how you can implement them for yourself, and when it makes sense to actually apply them to your offer. So why actually run a webinar? Well, firstly, it's the lowest resistance funnel that you're going to find out there. In effect, it's just a big lead magnet, and it's the best lead magnet that you're going to find because the amount of value your audience is going to get out of this is going to be on another level. It's going to be literally an hour and a half of just pure free value. They're going to get the ability to get all of their questions answered by the creator live on the presentation. So there's super low resistance to get people to actually sign up and join live for the presentation. It also means if you're running ads or if you're running cold traffic, you're going to get the lowest cost per lead by running this type of funnel compared to any other funnel. Secondly, it completely shortens the buyer's journey from first seeing you to actually signing up for your services. Before, potentially, they may have to see all of your content. They watch all your content, they get engaged, they have to send you a DM, they have a back and forth conversation with a setter, or maybe they submit an application and they have to get through to them on the phone, which takes a while. And then finally, they decide to book a call and they have to read emails from you and they have to go through a ton of other content. Everything is condensed into a webinar. All of that process is just squashed into 60 minutes or into 90 minutes of their time, and you can move through the entire process in just an hour and a half. It also builds the most insane amount of trust. They're going from the position of not really even knowing who you are to seeing you live present and become an authority about what you're actually talking about. You become the expert, they can see you providing value, and they literally know how much expertise you have and how much value they can get from you just by sitting on call. Not only that, they're gonna get to know you as well. They're gonna see your personality. You're gonna let everything out on the presentation so that the person can get to know you. And by the end of the 60, 90 minutes that you've spent on the live presentation, they feel like they personally know you. And not only that, it educates your audience better than anything else on there because they've just sat through 60 minutes of you explaining exactly what you do, how you can help them, and what exactly the niche does. So when it comes to actually signing up, they're going to be more educated, more qualified, and they're actually going to have trust in you as a person. Next, it just completely cleans up your pipeline. If you've got a big lead list or you've got a ton of prospects that you've taken sales calls with, but they didn't close and they just sat in your pipeline, then you can clean them all up with a webinar and close them in one go. Not only that, if you're running ads or paid traffic to this funnel, it has the highest return on ad spend I've seen and tested because firstly, the resistance to sign up and actually register is so low because in effect, it'd be stupid not to sign up. It's an hour and a half of just pure free value to the prospects. So if they didn't join, it would literally be silly. And on the back end as well, your conversion is going to be so much higher than like a standard VSL funnel or whatever funnels you've been running before now, because they just sit through 90 minutes of pure value where you get to demonstrate yourself as the authority figure. You get to show exactly you are the expert and they know that they can learn from you and you've proved yourself as somebody that they can learn from, and you've already built the trust up with the prospects because they've seen your personality and they get to know you actually on the presentation. Finally, it just straight up saves you time. You're selling one-to-many rather than one-to-one selling. So instead of taking 100 sales calls, you just take one live presentation and have 100 people join that sales call in one go. When I say 100, you can have hundreds, if not thousands of people on these webinars. So especially if you're running an offer which has super high volume, then you're gonna save the most amount of time and have the best margins just by running a live presentation and selling one-to-many rather than taking one-to-one individual sales calls. But what do you actually need to run a webinar? Well, it's super straightforward. If you have any of these, you should be good to run a webinar. First of all, a big email list. If you've got a couple thousand emails, maybe more than that, then you're gonna be perfect. Conversions from emails are absolutely insane to getting people to register. So if you've got a big email list, that's excellent. If you've got a pipeline of non-buyers, so maybe applications you've collected in the past, they never booked a call, or people that you booked sales calls with in the past, but they just didn't close on the sales calls. If you've got a pipeline of non-buyers, then it's going to be excellent to clean them all up in one go with a webinar. And finally, if you just have consistent traffic, whether it be coming from organic or whether it's paid colder traffic, if you've got consistent traffic coming in, then you can convert everybody in one go with the highest converting funnel that there is out there by running a webinar. So now that you know why you should run a webinar and what you actually need to run one, when does it make sense to apply it to your funnel? Well, it's going to depend on your situation, but typically I like to apply them every, say, 2 to 3 months. Whatever happens, the first one that you do is going to go extremely well. But after that, if you want to run multiple webinars, I like to do mine every 2 to 3 months and then not have it as my main funnel, just have it as an additional way to completely clean up all the leads that have come through for the past 2 months or any of the old leads that are sitting in my pipeline and just sweep them all up in one go. But it's going to depend on your offer. If you run them too often, especially if you're only running with organic traffic, you risk the potential of potentially burning out your audience. Say you tried running them every 2 to 3 weeks and you were only targeting an organic audience, then you're probably going to burn out your audience a little bit too much. But it's going to depend, obviously, down to your offer, how much of the traffic is cold traffic versus organic traffic. If it's cold traffic, then you can run them more often because you're going to be selling to new people each time, and the people on the webinars are going to be new leads rather than the same people. And it's also going to come down to the amount of lead flow you have as well. If you're dealing with hundreds of prospects on a daily basis, running a webinar or running an evergreen webinar funnel potentially might make sense. But for my personal situation, what I like doing with my clients is I'll run one every 2 to 3 months on top of their existing funnel to sweep up all of the leads that are sitting in the pipeline and just collect a massive amount of cash in one go. So now I'm going to show you how you can actually start applying a webinar to your funnel. And I'm going to give you sort of like a high level overview, first of all, the macro view of it. And then I'm going to dive in and show you each of the key areas individually and look at them on more of a micro scale. So to give you kind of like the high level overview, first of all, I break it down into 6 clear steps: attention, registrations, show rates, retention, conversion, and follow-ups. So our first key step is going to be attention. Where are we actually generating our traffic from and where are we going to be pushing it to? So we're going to look at our traffic sources, whether it be our organic, how are we going to generate leads from our YouTube, our Instagram, our TikTok, whether it be our email list, where are they coming from organically? If we're also running paid traffic to the webinar, what ads are we running and where is this going to be pushed to? Well, it's going to be pushed to our registration page. So the first key step is going to be gathering attention and delivering it to our landing page for people to sign up for the actual webinar itself. So the first key step is generating traffic and pushing it to the landing page. The second key step is getting registrations, okay? So we've generated the traffic, we've delivered it to the landing page, but how are we gonna convert as many of these into registrations as possible? So we need to have a high level actual landing page for people to view, which is set up correctly to convert as many of those people into registrations for the webinar as we can possibly have. So those are the first 2 key steps. And then of the people that actually sign up for the webinar, we need to get as many of those to join live for the live presentation as possible so we can actually sell them. So that leads into the third key step, which is show rates. So of the people that register, how are we actually going to get them to be able to join live for the training? So we're going to have thank you pages with custom videos on there. We're going to have email sequences, SMS sequences, broadcast groups. I'm going to dive into all of these key areas individually on a micro level after this. I'm just giving you a brief overview first of all. So we need to get as many show rates to the actual live training as possible. So that's step number 3. Step number 4 is retention. Of the people that actually join the live training, we need to retain as many of them as possible until we do our pitch at the end of the actual webinar. So of the people that join, we need them to stay the entire way through so that we can actually sell them and lead into our step 5, which is conversions. We need to actually be able to convert the people that stay until the pitch, they watch, they've joined the entire process. How are we actually going to now sell them? Well, we're going to do one of either 2 approaches. We're either going to sell directly on the webinar or we're going to book calls and we're going to sell them after the webinar on sales calls. And I'll dive into which of these will make sense for you specifically a bit later in this video. And hopefully after that, we're going to get sales. But if we don't get, we need a good follow-up process because not everyone sells initially. And all honesty, at least like 40% of your revenue with a webinar will come from having good follow-up systems and following up with the people that didn't book calls or didn't actually buy directly live on the webinar. So for your non-buyers, you're going to have different sequences for the people that showed up but they didn't buy, for the people that booked sales calls but no showed the sales calls. We're going to have email sequences, we're going to have an appointment setter or a dialer, and if after all of that we still can't sell to them, they still don't buy from us, we're going to have a downsell, potentially a low ticket offer that we can sell to them. Every single person that joins your webinar should have the ability to be sold to. The other good thing about webinars is you can literally estimate how much money that you're going to make from the webinar just by looking at some basic benchmarks, and as you get closer to the actual launch date, you'll have a better idea of how much money you're going to make directly out of the webinar. But if we look at some of the standard percentages that make sense and are kind of like a healthy range, Of the people that land on your landing page to the people that actually registered, it's going to be in the rough range of about 30 to 50%. So say you had 10,000 people visit, you're going to get 30 to 50% of those actually register for the live event. And then of the people that register to the live event, to the people that actually show up, who attend and actually sit through the presentation, you're going to get around 30 to 60%. That's kind of going to be the baseline. It will depend on how warm your audience is, how long ago they registered. So if they registered 2 weeks ago, the show rates are probably going to be a lot lower than if they registered 1 day before the webinar. How warm the traffic is, whether it's coming from ads, whether they're super hot leads that you're sending here, it's going to be roughly 30 to 60% as a healthy range. Then you've got your retention until the pitch. So of the people that actually show up to the webinar, around, I guess, a healthy place to be is around 75%. So you can literally see on this live presentation here, these are all the people that join live. And then around the 1 hour, 10-minute mark is where we started pitching. And you can see the drop off here. People start to drop off from the actual live presentation, which is kind of going to be expected. But the goal is to have as many people still on the live at this point when we start pitching as possible. A good healthy range is around 75% of them. Then you need to look at your conversions, and your conversions are going to depend on whether you're selling direct to cart, selling directly on the webinar, or whether you're booking a call and selling on one-to-one after the webinar on sales calls. Which one of these makes sense to you is which one will make sense for you is going to depend, and I'll run you through how you're going to decide which one to go with. But first of all, if you're selling direct to cart just with a checkout page, you can typically expect around a 3 to 5% conversion rate. So if you had 100 people watching for the entire pitch, roughly 3 to 5 of them will convert into sales. And then you have your book calls as well. So of anybody that is still viewing when we're pitching, we're going to get them to submit an application. So typically around 30% of the people watching will submit an application. On the application, we're going to have a booking link as well. So after they finish filling out the application, they're going to get directed to book a call. And of the people that submit applications, you're going to get around 30% of them that actually book and show up to their appointments. So around 10% of the people that are viewing, that are still on your live webinar, about 10% of them will actually book a sales call and they'll show up to that sales call. And then of the people that actually show up to those sales calls, your close rate is going to be around 30 to 50%, which means you're left with an overall conversion of around 3 to 5% again. So whether you're selling direct to cart or whether you're selling book a call, the conversions are going to be they're going to be pretty similar. You're going to see similar conversions, but it's going to depend on what you're selling and what makes sense for you. So I'm going to dive into how you decide which type of conversion mechanism you're going to want to use. We can look at that a bit in a minute. So if you apply those benchmarks, you can actually estimate how much money that you're going to make from a webinar. For the sake of this example here, I'm going to use the median number from each of these different ranges I gave you. So say you were able to generate 10,000 visitors to your landing page. Of that, roughly 40% will convert. So that will give us 4,000 registrations, 4,000 people who registered live to join the presentation. Of those 4,000 people who joined live, the median number here is around 45%. So if I get 45% of those people to show up live, we're left with 1,800 who actually did show. Of the 1,800 who showed, you can expect about 75% of them to retain until the pitch. So we're left with 1,350 people still on the presentation as we're pitching. Of those remaining people, we can expect around a 4% conversion rate. So if 4% of those convert, we're left with about 54 sales. So of the initial 10,000 people that we pushed to the landing page, we converted 54 of them. And this is going to depend on your offer. I'm using this as an example. If you're selling at a 3K price point for this offer, if you're selling at a 3K price point, you'll need to do a book a call conversion mechanism. But say you converted 54 of those people at a 3K offer, you just made 162K from a 90-minute presentation. So what took an hour and a half of your time to run a webinar live, you just made 162K from. But how do you actually decide which conversion mechanism you're going to use? Whether you're going to sell directly on the webinar with a checkout page, selling direct to cart, or whether you're going to be booking a call and having a sales rep come in and actually close the deal. Well, it's going to depend on a few things. The first thing is going to be the size of your ticket and what you're actually looking to sell. So I typically say to sell direct live on the webinar, it can't be anything more than 2K. Anything more than 2K and it's going to be, your conversions are going to fall off pretty quickly because you haven't got anybody there to actually objection handle, walk them through joining, and it suddenly becomes like quite a big investment where they need to speak to somebody to actually sign up. So if you're selling below a 2K package, running direct to cart probably makes sense. So yeah, low to mid ticket offers will make sense for this. But the benefits of actually running a checkout page or selling directly on the webinar is you don't need a sales team. You don't need a sales rep. Your margins are going to be so much better because of this, and there's going to be way less management because you're just selling directly on the webinar. There's no sales team to manage. You don't need to pay a sales team. The only thing that you may need for this is you're probably going to need a setter still. You can just give the setter a small percentage and pay them to basically ring up any failed payments that go through. So you can sit in your payment processor, look at who's tried to make payment but couldn't quite get through, and have a setter dial those people and make sure that we actually end up processing payment with them. But the downside to this is there's much higher resistance to take action. They're not directly talking to someone, so they could just leave the webinar and never actually pay. They haven't got that person pushing them over the edge. The conversions will be slightly lower. So if for instance, if you were selling a higher ticket package and you tried to run direct to cart with a checkout page, you're going to have lower conversions. Simply, there's just no one there to objection handle. At this sort of price package though, it makes sense. There's no sales team. It's less work. You have better margins. The conversions might be slightly lower. It's just going to depend on whether that makes sense for you, as opposed to booking a call. Okay, so anything above 2K, I would definitely recommend that you actually book a sales call for. So your mid or your high ticket offers, you're definitely going to want to book sales calls or get them to submit applications and then book a sales call with one of your closers. But you're going to have way higher conversions actually at these price points by booking calls because you've got somebody there to actually get them over the line. The downsides to this though, it is more management and it makes your margins worse. You have to actually manage the whole sales team. You have to then, of the people that book sales calls, you have to actually make sure that those people show up to the sales calls. There's definitely a lot more work on the back end, and it's going to hurt your margins more because you're going to need a sales rep to actually take the sales call, which you're going to be paying out a percentage on, and you're also going to need a setter to triage all of these book calls beforehand, to send them all the resources they need, to speak to them on the phone before they actually join live for their sales call. So you're going to be paying out a lot more for a sales team on this. So it's just going to come down to your price point, whether you want less management and better margins, or whether you want high conversions but more work when it comes to on the back end and having to manage it and pay a sales team. It just depends on what you're selling, how good your offer is, and what is personally going to work best for you. Okay, so now that you know what the webinar is, kind of how it works, what do you actually need to be in a position where you're ready to launch the webinar and start telling people that you're going to be hosting one and that they should join? Well, here's kind of an overview list here. The first thing you need to know is the name of your webinar, what the headline is. Having a really good narrative for the webinar is super important. This is the reason people are joining. This is going to be the first bit of copy that you're using on your landing pages, you're doing on your story sequences. So knowing what the name of the webinar is, what your headline is going to be, and what the actual overall narrative of the webinar is going to be super important. Next, you're going to need a lead magnet as well. So just by registering for the webinar, what are they going to get? They're going to get a completely free resource just by signing up. As long as they sign up and then they join our broadcast channel, they're going to get this free resource. So it's just an extra way to increase your conversion rates on the landing page, but also in signups as well, just making sure you get as many people to actually convert into a sign up because they're going to get this completely free resource just by signing up. Then you need to kind of have an outline of exactly what you're going to be teaching on the webinar and what your audience will learn. You're going to need this for all of your marketing, from the landing pages to the emails you're writing to all the content you're posting organically or even on your ads. People need to know what they're going to be learning from the webinar, so you need to know what you're going to be teaching. Second of all, your offer. This isn't so important. You only really need this live on the presentation. But it's going to be what exactly are you going to be selling to your prospects. But you need to have an overview of it beforehand just so you can make sure that you tailor your messaging and marketing around the offer. Then you need to know, are you going to be selling direct to cart or are you going to be booking a call? So I just gave you an overview of potentially what solution might make sense for you. So you need to know what this is going to be just so you can have all of your systems set up correctly. And I'll dive into each of those systems a bit later in this video as well. And then after the webinar, are you going to be doing a replay? Are you going to be doing a rerun? Which one makes sense for you? Because this is also going to affect your marketing message as well, whether you're saying, hey, look, I'm never going to rerun this again. So basically that affects your marketing message, how you want to say it. And then you can kind of decide on this, I guess, when you see how well the first webinar performs, whether you want to do a replay page and push people to watch a replay of it, or whether you want to do a completely live second webinar and just sweep up everybody from who wasn't able to make it to the first one. Then you're going to need, obviously, your registration page. This is where you're pushing people to, where they're actually going to be signing up and how you're going to be converting them into people that are going to attend the webinar. Then you need a thank you page as well. So after somebody signs up, you're going to be pushing them to a thank you page. On here, there's going to be a video to watch where it walks them through exactly how they can come prepared to the webinar. So by prepared, I mean they've added the event to their calendar, so it pops up in their calendar and they can see it in there with the meeting link to join the webinar. It's also going to have the link to the broadcast group as well. This is just going to be another way for us to remind people and follow up with people post-webinar. So making sure they join the broadcast group. We're either going to use WhatsApp here or Telegram. So that's going to be super important, making sure that that's on the thank you page. We're also going to need an entire reminder flow automation as well. So this is going to be our emails. This is going to be our SMS messages. All of this needs to be in place before people start registering so that they can just get added straight to the workflow and they'll get reminded before the webinar, and they're going to get nurtured as well. So we want to nurture, educate, and remind our prospects before the actual webinar, and hopefully they join already educated a little bit, and they actually do join up. Then you're going to want all of your ManyChat automations. So this is going to be like people that opt in, they see your story sequence, and they swipe up with whatever keyword you're using, or they comment on your post with the keywords that you've said to use. If they comment this word, they'll get the link to be able to register, making sure all your ManyChat automations are set up. And also the Webinar Jam as well. Webinar Jam is the platform that you will be hosting the webinar actually through. By far, it's the best platform. I know you can use Zoom and stuff like that. Webinar Jam is just superior in every single way. So running with a Webinar Jam, specifically for the analytics as well, making sure this is set up. So once that they register, they get added into as an attendee for the webinar. They get the Webinar Jam emails. They get the links to be able to actually join live when we go live with it. But that's kind of like an overview of everything that you need before actually going live with the announcement that you're going to be hosting a webinar. This is kind of like an overview of everything that you need for that. Okay, now you've got all the resources you need to actually start pushing people to sign up. You need people to actually register. If people don't register, then you've got a pointless webinar. So we're going to need to do a big marketing push and a launch period to actually get people to register. I would typically say it's going to depend on your offer again, but around 7 to 10 days is going to be the sweet spot for how long you want to promote the webinar beforehand. There's a few things to bear in mind with this. If you start doing like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, long promotion for the webinar, there's a few things it's going to do. First of all, people don't really know if they're available like in 2 or 3 weeks time on a random Sunday at 3 p.m. So they kind of don't really know if they're available yet or not. And the second thing is it might slightly slow down your main funnel for the like period of time that you're running the promotion, if that makes sense. So for like the 7 or 10 days, it's not going to like completely wipe it off the planet, but you're going to be pushing as much of your traffic to this as possible. To get as many signups as possible. So it might slightly slow down some of your other funnels just for that 7 to 10 days that you're doing it, which is why I don't like to run webinars too much anyway. But yeah, so that's just another thing to keep in mind as well, because you're going to be pushing as much of your traffic to this as possible. It might slow down some other stuff. So you don't really want to slow down your entire main funnel for like 3 weeks beforehand. 7 to 10 days is kind of like the right sweet spot. And most of your registrations will come within these time periods. So the first 1 to 3 days, when you actually announce, is when you'll get a massive influx of signups, people registering, people visiting your landing page, because you haven't announced it. This is the big announcement. A lot of people are going to be driven to it. Then there's kind of going to be a slow period in between the announcement and like the actual start before the actual webinar itself. So in the first like 1 to 3 days, you're going to have a big push, big influx of registrations from the announcement. And in the final 1 to 2 days, maybe in the final 3 days, you're going to get another massive big push of registrations, especially the final 24 hours. The final 24 hours, you'll get a massive chunk of new registrations as well, because we've got our announcement and then we're actually getting really close to the date of the webinar. So this is when typically we'll see the most people register and sign up. And in between here, we'll be getting more registrations. We're still going to be doing promo, but it will likely be a little bit slower. So first 1 to 3 days, you really need to go crazy with the announcement, and the final few days beforehand needs to be a massive push as well. But throughout the entire 7 to 10 day launch period, we're going to continue to promote and push people to actually sign up for the webinar. But where are you actually going to get the traffic from? And how are you going to push people to the registration page? Well, I've kind of mapped out a ton of different organic systems and paid systems that you might have in place already. to look at. The first being is email marketing. Your email is going to be the most effective by a mile. If you've got a big email list, or even if you have a small email list, making sure you email every single person on there is going to be super important. You'll get a lot of registrations from your emails. The second being, if you've got like a free community somewhere, maybe you've got a school, a WhatsApp, a Discord, even like an Instagram broadcast channel or a Telegram broadcast channel, all of these places are going to be excellent to push people to the webinar. They've been nurtured for ages, they've been inside of your community, or they've been receiving your broadcasts for a while, so they're going to be super warmed up, and you're going to get a lot of conversions from this as well. The next is YouTube videos, and YouTube is super important. If you've got a decent YouTube, I definitely would recommend making at least 2 YouTube videos with promo for the webinar, with direct CTAs to push people to register for the webinar. I would definitely recommend doing at least 2 YouTube videos. This is super important. A lot of signups will come from your YouTube videos. The next being is like YouTube community posts as well. Also inside of YouTube, I found these to be like really, really effective. It's community posts. It's just another way to get through to your YouTube audience outside of the videos you make. And then you have a really, really important one. Instagram stories are going to be so useful, and they're going to be one of your best tools to actually get signups. So making sure you have extremely dialed in sequences to actually go live and promote on your story is going to be super important. Then from there, you can do reels as well. You can post reels talking about it, talking about the webinar. And then you can just have the automation as like comment webinar, and I'll send you the free link to join my free training or something like that. And then boom, people comment, they get the ManyChat automation to register. So Instagram reels will be super important as well. You definitely want to make quite a few reels about the webinar. The next thing you want to have is your Instagram bio. For the duration of the promo, so for the 7 to 10 days that you're going to be doing the run up to the webinar, you want to push as much of your traffic here as possible. So you want to update your bio to include the webinar link. Here's an example of Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is probably one of the guys who's crushing it the hardest with webinars right now. He's running them pretty consistently, and as you can see, literally in his bio, he has the link to register for his live events. Super easy to find it. A lot of people are going to go ahead and register. You also have your Instagram DMs as well. Maybe you've got a setter in the DMs, or you've got a VA or something like that. Get them to message every single person and just send a link to register to them. Like, hey, just thought I'd reach back out. I was thinking about that this might be a good opportunity for you to join. Here's the free link to join or to register for my webinar. If you want to join, just get your VA to send it to absolutely everyone you've had conversations with. That's going to be super helpful. Then you've got your TikTok traffic as well. Same thing with LinkedIn. Make sure if you've got both of these, pushing people to actually register for the webinar. And then you've got your paid ads as well. And the way I like to run my paid ads, obviously it's going to be depending on your offers individually, but I like to have paid ads supplement my organic traffic. So I'd like most of my registrations to come from organic traffic, but I will supplement that with paid traffic as well. Like get some more flow from here. If you're running more of a cold audience, that's okay. You can run more of it with paid traffic. Either way, a webinar is super great at converting from paid traffic because of how well it nurtures and educates the prospects and builds trust with them. Also Twitter as well. These are just like an overview of some that I mapped out where you can source leads from and how you can actually generate registrations or visitors to your landing page. You might have other sources as well on top of these, but that's kind of what I just mapped out as some clear, easy ones. And these here are all going to be super effective at getting registrations. Okay, but now they've registered, you need to make sure that they actually show up to the webinar. That is super, super, super important, because if they don't show and you get nobody that attends live, then you might as well have not bothered with the whole promo in the first place. So this is something you're going to need to have in place before you start the promotion that I touched on earlier, but we're going to be looking at it super in depth. And this is going to be having a nurture and reminding sequence. Some of this is going to be automated, some of this is going to be done manually. We're going to be running emails, SMS, and a broadcast group. The emails and the SMS are going to be automated, and the broadcast group we're going to post into manually. You can do that on WhatsApp or Telegram. But the first thing to look at is going to be your emails. This here is an example email sequence that I used for one of my clients. And as you can see, it is a massive email sequence, absolutely massive. Running multiple emails to everyone that registers. And the amount of emails people are going to receive is going to depend on when they register. So these are all scheduled to go out at certain times before the actual live presentation itself. And depending on when they register is when the prospects will actually join this sequence. So if they register right from the very beginning, they're going to receive email 1 and every single email after it. But if they register only 2 days before the actual webinar, they'll join at this point here and they'll receive whatever email this is and every single email after it up until the webinar goes live. But it's super important to have these systems in place and make sure that they're ready to actually basically nurture, educate, and remind the prospect that we're going to be hosting this webinar and that they need to join live. The next automated sequence you're going to have is going to be your SMS reminders. And these are the same thing. You can add them to the same workflow as this. I've just got this separately here. You're going to really only want to utilize these when you get closer to the event. Maybe you want to have a confirmation text saying, hey, just confirming that you've been registered. And then you don't really want to use any SMS up until just before the webinar. So like 1 day out, you're going to send them a text saying, hey, we're 1 day away. And then 2 hours before, send them a text. And then I like to send them one more text 15 minutes before the actual webinar itself. But we're going to have automated texts to go out with the join link so that people can easily find it and they can join live easily. But we're also going to have our WhatsApp broadcast group. You can do Telegram as well. It's going to depend on what works best for you. I think WhatsApp is slightly better, but there are limits to the amount of people you can have inside of a WhatsApp broadcast group. So you need to look at how many registrations you're expecting to get. But WhatsApp's definitely better for conversions. So inside of the broadcast group, you're going to be pushing everyone to join this channel on the thank you page, and in your emails that you're sending here, you're also going to be pushing people to join this because you can send as many WhatsApp messages as you want beforehand. For instance, like here's the link to join, like we're going live in 15 minutes, and like, oh, we're live right now, join right here. If you need to follow up with people post-webinar as well, like here's all the resources, like here's the replay for you to go ahead and watch. This offer ends on Friday, so you can continue creating urgency inside of this chat. This is an excellent tool to have for reminding post-webinar and just continuing to educate and nurture the audience a little bit more. So this is going to be kind of like an overview of your reminder sequence. You're going to have a massive email sequence. You're going to have some SMS text messages sprinkled in there closer to the actual date of the webinar. And then you can nurture in your broadcast group, where this is where we're going to be pushing everyone to. We can kind of have a bit of like fun in here, these lesser reminders, ask people questions about what they'd like to learn on the webinar, stuff like that. And this is all going to be done inside of here. And then we can actually just remind people of the webinar when we get closer to the date as well, so we can double up and act as that tool. Next, and probably the most key area, is going to be the live presentation. If you don't have a good presentation, your retention rates are going to really be bad, your conversion rates are going to be bad, so making sure you have an excellent presentation is going to be super, super important. And it needs to be all of these things. It needs to be, first of all, it needs to be fast-paced. So we make a lot of slides. Like if you see here, the presentation that we do for 90 minutes is over 350 slides. And that's because we want, like, some of these slides might even only have like 1 or 2 words on it, and we just click through. Just going through slides very quickly is really good for just keeping people engaged. It freshens up. You're not just constantly reading off of slides. It's just very refreshing, and it's fast paced because you're moving through these slides very quickly. So fast paced, but also it needs to be high value as well. The audience needs to get so much value from it. It's like, damn, like it almost wouldn't make sense to not sign up with you at the end of the webinar, because they've just seen how much value you can provide for them. They've just shown you, you've just proven that you actually know what you're talking about. You're an expert in your field. So that's going to be super important, making sure it's high value. The next thing is going to be interactive as well. This is just for keeping people engaged, making sure that they continue watching throughout it as well. It's not something they just like stick on their laptop, they go in the other room, or they go on their phone. They actually you want them to continue being engaged for the entire presentation. Best way to do that is make it interactive. Keep the chat inside of the webinar room just super active throughout the entire presentation. It might be like, oh, if you think this is true and false, message true in the chat, or like message this message 1 if you're still watching, stuff like that. Just like keep them still engaged and keep them actually watching the presentation is by making it interactive. And then finally, you need to have a really, really good strong offer and pitch. The offer you should have come up with beforehand, obviously, but the pitch needs to be excellent. And this needs to be super, super strong and make it almost a no-brainer why people shouldn't sign up with you. Whether for the actual webinar, you're going to be doing discounts, you're going to give them so many bonuses that the bonuses are better than the actual offer itself, better than the actual products. All of this stuff, you basically need to make it so attractive to sign up on the webinar that it'd be stupid not to, and have an incredibly good pitch. And this is kind of like a breakdown into timings of the webinar and how long you should be talking for. So the first, actually I need to add one on here, but the first like 5 minutes of the presentation are going to be waiting for people to join. So you can just keep the chat active, ask where people are from, how they're doing, maybe do it like answer some quick questions from the chat beforehand. Then you're going to do 15 to 20 minutes of introduction. So this is going to be saying exactly who you are, why they should listen to you, what makes you an expert, stuff like that. Basically just introducing yourself. Then you're going to do 40 to 45 minutes of the actual training. This is going to be like the core focus of the actual presentation. This is where you're going to give out so much value. They're going to get to see you teaching them. They're going to learn from you. They're going to be educated. They're going to be nurtured. They're going to get to know you on a personal level. 40 to 45 minutes of like the key training. Then we're going to spend 5 minutes sort of like transitioning into an offer. So like pre-handling any objections before we start pitching, answering the most common questions before we start pitching. All of this like is going to be part of the transition into our offer. Then we're going to spend 10 to 15 minutes delivering a very high quality pitch and a very high quality offer to them. So we spend about 10, 15 minutes that, and then after we've wrapped up the pitch, as many of the people have booked calls or they've actually bought from you as possible on the webinar, we're going to go into Q&As as well. And the Q&As is like an extra opportunity to just prolong the webinar, make it go longer, handle any objections or questions that people may have, make sure that you can continue pushing people to register, to book a call, to submit an application, or whether to actually go and sign up with your checkout page. All of this can be done in the Q&A session. You answer the questions live, answer their questions, handle their objections, stuff like that. They'll probably have questions related to your actual offer itself. So making sure that all gets taken care of. And that's kind of like an overview of the structure of the webinar, timings, and how long it should roughly take. Overall, but somewhere between about 90 minutes and 2 hours. So yeah, an hour and a half, 2 hours for the entire presentation. Okay, so you've got the presentation nailed. You need to understand how you're actually going to be converting these prospects. Well, the first thing to look at is going to be which type of funnel you're using, conversion mechanism, whether you're selling direct to cart or whether you're booking a call. If you're selling direct to cart, then you're literally just going to have an offer on the presentation. It will pop up on the screen like sign up right here. All the links will be in the chat. We'll have QR codes for people to scan as well. And they're going to be directed to a checkout page where they can see exactly what they're going to get from the program, and they can actually just put in their credit cards and sign up. We're also going to have our headline on here as well, and some other like testimonials, results, case studies, social proof is also going to be on here, and just have the option to sign up. You want to make sure that there's financing options available for them. So obviously you can sign up with cards, but for instance here I'm using WOP as an example. We've got Klarna, we've got Afterpay, we've got Splitit. I think that we typically have a few more as well. I think we've got like Sezzle. There's like a ridiculous amount of financing options. There should be no reason they shouldn't be able to sign up. You're going to need a setter on the back end, or you can do this personally, ringing every single one of the people that fail to pay or incomplete or don't complete their payments. So if they fail to get approved for financing, give them a call, find a way around it. Or if there's people that start putting in their details and don't actually finish the payment, making sure we get through to those people so they do complete their payment. That's going to be your conversion mechanism if you're selling direct to cart on the checkout page. The other is going to be if you're booking a call. And now if you're booking a call, we're actually going to start off by submitting an application. You're going to want to use Typeform for this. Typeform by far is the absolute best system to use. You're going to have some questions in here. Obviously, collecting their name and contact information so we know who submitted an application form. We're also going to want to have our partial submit here as well. So after we get their contact details, it's just going to collect those without them needing to answer the rest of the questions in case they don't fully finish the form. Then obviously we're going to have our standard application questions for like if they want to start working with you on a business. But one of the questions is going to be financially qualifying them, how much money they have. Do you have do you have 5,000 plus? Do you have 3 to 5,000? Do you have 1 to 3,000? Or do you have less than 1,000? Basically get them to financially qualify themselves of how much money they have. And then obviously we need to have a Calendly link on here as well and make sure that it's required. So after they submit their application form answers, one of them is literally just to book a call with us. But we're only going to do that if they're qualified. So we're going to have conditional logic set up inside a Typeform that if they're not qualified and they have less than $1,000, they don't get pushed to the page where they can book a call. But if they have more than the minimum amount we want, then we're going to redirect them to the page on Calendly where they can actually go ahead and schedule their call with our team. And then from there, you're going to have your calendar's just going to start packing up immediately after the webinar. You're going to need to have your setters in place, your closers ready to start taking calls. Basically, you want to have your availability open from the moment the webinar starts, pretty much. So if somebody books in from the webinar, so they can literally just book a call in and then hop straight on call with one of your closers, if that's possible as well. We want to just keep the amount of time from them booking the call to when they actually join it as short as possible. So your calendar is going to start packing up with book calls. Finally, you need to follow up with absolutely everyone because the most of your money is going to come from follow-ups. Like a big chunk, almost like 40-50% of your sales will come from just having proper follow-up systems. So first of all, we want to contact absolutely everyone. If you're doing book a call funnel, by the way, if you're booking sales calls. For anybody who started submitting an application, we collected their lead information. So remember I said about that partial submit point. We collect their contact information, but they didn't finish submitting the application form or they didn't actually book a call. We're going to go ahead and contact them and make sure that they do book a call. We're going to book them in for them. So anybody that does that, we're also going to have email sequences going out to them. Absolutely spam them with emails post-webinar if they didn't book a call. If at any point that they do go ahead and book, say after like email 4, they finally decide to schedule, they'll get taken out of that sequence. They don't get like a ton of other emails, basically trying to get them to book a call when they already have. Then we've got attended, but they didn't apply. So these are people that actually joined live onto the webinar, but didn't even start submitting an application. We're going to obviously try and get all of those as well. We're going to have a CTA to apply post-webinar, so we can do this inside of our WhatsApp broadcast channel or inside of our Telegram. We're also going to do a replay offer the next morning, and then also CTAs again the day after, and then a final offer expiring, final chance to join CTA. But this is going to be done through emails, SMS follow-ups inside of the broadcast group. Same thing for people that straight up just didn't attend. They registered, but they didn't attend. What we're going to want to do in that example is we're going to just want to try and push them to the replay page and make sure that they watch the replay. And then obviously, once again, CTA to them actually booking a call with the team. And here's an example here of like post-webinar, you can use it as well. You can use it to create urgency, like PS, the 30% discount ends Friday, or whatever it is. You can create urgency inside of the broadcast group. We're going to be sending emails, we're going to have SMSs, you're going to have your dialing team in place, contacting every single person anyway. So all of these systems are going to be on top of your setting team who are going to be contacting all of these prospects. That's super important, having a good setting team that are either going to message them privately, we're going to phone them. Basically, we don't want to let any of these leads slip through the cracks because they're all super high quality leads. Because if they've sat on the presentation for 60 to 90 minutes, then they're going to be so warmed up and are literally ready to buy. We just need to make sure that we do book a call with them. So having setting teams, making sure all these follow-up processes are in place is super important. Okay, so I've just given you a full overview of why exactly you should run a webinar, what you need to run a webinar, when it makes sense to actually do one, how one even works and what the structure of the funnel looks like, and then how you can even apply it to your business, to your funnels, and use it in your business to actually collect up revenue, sweep up your entire pipeline, and hopefully have a massive influx of cash for when you run this webinar. But if you're considering running a webinar for yourself and you'd like me to help you actually run one for your business, or if you're somebody who manages offers and you'd like help running webinars for one of your clients, then you can check the link in the descriptions, or you can message me directly on Instagram. I'll put the link to my Instagram in the description as well. So just drop me a message, check out some of the links, and I can help you run them individually. Hopefully you learned a lot from this and you can able to start applying these to your businesses.